All right, so we were in Flight Simulator and we captured the altimeter gauge by hitting print screen. So there you go. That is it right there. I'm going to zoom in. So like I said, this I believe that whatever is shown in the game is not exactly like Air Manager, and I hate to keep saying this, but I think I can do better. I know I can do better because I've done a couple of them, and hopefully this helps you guys. Maybe this helps you if you want to change other gauges. I'll show you how I go about doing this. So I went in the game, I went to home cockpit mode, dead on view, using the up and down arrow keys. I settled myself right in front of this altimeter gauge and grabbed it, and I grabbed it so good and so fast. So here we go. First thing I'm going to do in Photoshop, I'm going to grab my elliptical marquee tool. I'm going to hold shift down, which holds the constraint of the marquee, which means if I let go, this will turn into a oval. So as I teach you guys how to change these gauges around, I'm also going to teach you Photoshop if that's okay by you guys. So there it is. There's the marquee tool right there. There's my camera right there about to die. But as you can see, it's a little bit bigger. That's fine. As long as it's a perfect circle, that's all we need. Select, modify. So this is a selection, so we're going to go to select. We're going to modify that selection by transforming the selection. And then now we have a transform bar around it. Holding shift down, we are going to shrink this until it fits perfectly around. We're going to come back to this image a lot, so this will be our base, home base here as we climb the Himalayas of Air Manager. So there it is. We grabbed it. It's perfectly selected. I'm going to hit Control C, and I do it a couple of times just to make sure. Eddie, let me know, man. I turned down my monitoring screen. Let me know if you can still hear me. Honestly, I didn't think anyone was going to come watch this. It's better to just do it live than record it, because it's just, I don't know, that way I don't have to like edit it or whatever. But there it is. So this is the one inside of Air Manager. So let me show you guys how I grabbed it and where this is. I bring up Air Manager, which is right here. Come on now, work with me. All right, there's Air Manager right here. In your panel, you're going to go all the way down wherever you made it. You're going to make a default panel. Then you're going to add this to it, and you'll find it. It's on my screen, it looks a little bit reddish and just not really. I don't like the way it looks, but I'm going to go to one that I've already duplicated. So if you go over to create edit and you find it, what you do is you clone it. And I'm not this good at it, not pretty good at Air Manager. So you clone it and it comes up as a clone. I like to rename it Altimeter CF Redo. I'm going to call it Redo. So call it a name that you can distinguish from the regular one. So I'm going to say, okay, now we have another one. When I go back to home, I'm going to delete this one. I just wanted to show you guys what the standard one looked like. And I'm going to add another instrument, which is the one we just cloned. The reason you're doing this, because if you changed, you can actually change the instrument that comes with Air Manager, but it doesn't get saved for some reason. So the camera died as I promised, and that's fine. I'm going to turn that silliness off. You don't need to see my stupid face anyways. So we're going to look for the altimeter clone. I'm going to type in 152 alt, and let's see if we can find it. There we go. Now we found the altimeter CF redo. I'm going to double click it and I'm going to add it. So now we added it, but because it's a clone, it looks just as bad as, I hate to say just as bad, but it looks just like the original. So we are going to go into create edit, find it, and we know we found it because, you know, we just made it. It's right there. We're going to right click on it and open folder, resources. What this does, it is opens a folder deep inside of Air Manager that shows all of the images that are used to make that gauge. So let me give you extra large icon. So what is it? Well, it's the face of it. Then wouldn't you know it, it's a little dial, the barometric pressure dial. And hey, what's up, Rai? What's Gucci Gucci? I do have no idea what bar set dial is. I feel pretty stupid, but then we got long needle, round needle, and so on. So we're gonna have to modify all of these. I'm not gonna lie, Rai. I've been having a crappy stream to start with, man. My camera died. My pretty face was on stream. But yeah, struggles. Struggle bus is real in full effect. The cool part about these streams is, you know, I get to edit them later. Hey, thanks, homie. Appreciate you. Yeah, I'm having a pretty rough time right now. I'm not going to lie. Usually I'm pretty smooth with it, but, you know, we're 15 minutes into it and I'm struggling. Hey, all right, let's keep going. Enough chippa chappa. Chappa chappa chappa. Okay, so we're going to shut this down and we're going to go back into that folder and grab it. And so I'm just telling you right now, as soon as you clone this gauge, it makes a duplicate of it. And that duplicate uses these images. Anything we do to these images, like if we draw a you know, donkey on the face of this gauge, it will be in Air Manager in the game. So no donkeys allowed, okay? Okay, so what is going on? What am I doing here? Well, unfortunately, again, no offense to the guy who first made this. That gauge, to me, is not the gauge that I see in a Cessna. Like when I look up gauges in the Cessna, sure, he did a pretty good job, but you know, I would say that this gauge right here is a little more realistic compared to this one. So we need to try to figure out how to get this gauge working in here. We're going to start step by step, layer by layer. The bottom image that is always used in the Air Manager altimeter gauge is this image right here. And that is the face, what I call the faceplate. So because we already have it, I showed you guys how to select it. I copied and pasted and deleted the background. I can grab it now and I can drag it straight on top of here. But here's what happens. My image was a lot higher quality, so it's going to come in a lot bigger. So what I'm going to do is shrink it. You always have to hold down Shift in Photoshop as you drag from the corners, right? So hold Shift, drag from the corner, and you can see I'm maximizing it, minimizing it, whatever. So we're going to try to get it to look exactly as big as the original gauge. And I think that's pretty good right there. So this is barely the beginning. There's so much more to go. Item 2 that's really easy to fix right now is the background. Mine looks really red and rusty and weird. And I mean, I've never seen a Cessna in pictures or in the game that looks red. And so that's the first thing that got me to change these gauges. I'm like, what's up with the red gauges, man? So I'm going to duplicate this by holding down Alt. I'm going to hold down Alt. I'm going to grab this layer, pull it up, and now we have a duplicate of it. I'm going to go Control U. Control U is a shortcut for hue saturation. And I'm going to desaturate this all the way down. Then I'm going to put my gauge on top by just turning it back on. And there it is. So now we're working on a black background. Immediately I feel like we fixed it. So there we go. Next step, we're going to have to start separating this image that we just grabbed from the game. Has everything on top. It has the barometer, it has the numbers, everything is piled high on top of itself. So what I'm going to try to do is kind of start to dissect this little by little here. So let's start with the needles. Let's pull the needles out real quick. The way to do that, I'm going to grab here, hold down on this marquee tool, and now we have two circles. we are going to highlight both of them by dragging over it and make selection. So by the way, just so you know, so I'm skipping the little pieces of the puzzle that I always, everyone's like, wait, what just happened? You have to be on this black arrow. That's a path selection tool because I'm trying to select a path. There it is. I selected it, both of them. I'm right clicking. I'm going to make selection, make sure there's no feathered radius, and I'm going to say OK. So now what we have is we capture those two tiny little bubbles, but there's a lot more to this needle. So, excuse me. I went over to my polygon selection tool, which is here. I clicked on it, and I'm just going to try to capture that whole needle little by little. I'm going to go all the way to here. Be pretty accurate with it, but I'll show you in a moment why it's okay. Well, we can fix the little raggedy edges. There we go. So now we have it. If I make sure I'm on that layer, this one right here, layer 2, which is what we will name by double clicking, we will name it FS 2020 Alt. I noticed that my selection tool had a feather set to it up here in the corner, so I'm going to make sure that that is off down to 0. So unfortunately, guys, Control D eliminates the selection, and quickly go back and redo the steps, because what happens, a feather means it just makes a blurry edges. So I selected them, make selection, say OK, get the polygon tool, and go. Yes, I do. I absolutely do. Eddie, have you seen me? Or I think you caught me doing, I think Truck Simulator? I forget, Eddie. I don't know where I, in one of my stupid streams where I captured you and wasted your time. I don't really remember. So anyways, see, there you go. So you captured all of it. Control C, Control Shift V. These are all hotkeys. So wait, we're going to do it again. Control C. And then Control Shift V. So now what we did, and I'll show you real quickly by turning all these layers off, we literally just captured the needle by selecting it. There we go. So now we have the needle by itself. That's one needle. So let's call this I call it the medium needle. So it's good to always name your layers. Otherwise, you just get confused when you start having 20, 30, and in my job sometimes I'll have 200, 300. I've even had 1,000 layers. So starting to name them is really, really helpful. There we go. So we got the needle out of it. All right, let's keep going. We got a lot to do here. Go back in the center. Again, let's draw. Well, we don't need to do that, right? Because we know that we've already made a circle. This inner circle always sits dead center to the gauge. So we have that. I'm going to click on it with my black arrow, right click, make selection. Okay. But again, remember, we need to capture the whole arrow. I'm going to get my polygon lasso tool, and I'm going to go up and just slowly, a couple click, make your way around this little nubby pointer, come down the side, and there you go. We have it. Go back, make sure you're always on the layer that you want to copy from. You have to highlight it, so you have to click on it. Control C, Control Shift V. And I've explained in past what Control Shift V instead of Control C, Control V. Shift pastes it right back to where it came from. So here we go. Now we got two needles. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? Look what we got. We're so fancy these days. So we got two needles. One needle, two needles. Perfect. All right, let's keep going. Got a lot to do. A lot to do. Now, I'm going to take a moment here because I feel a discrepancy in the force here. So I'm going to go back to the altimeter. Remember, I opened that folder. I showed that at the beginning, how to find where these images are stored. So thanks, Eddie. Yeah, man, we all love that game. It's freaking fire. If it could only work properly and stop freaking ruining everything and crashing every 3 times we play, right? And So I'm pausing for a moment because I do see the long needle, I see the small needle, and the round needle. What is that referring to? So the one way to do that is to back up one folder, look at the preview, and I'm trying to figure out, got it. I see what he's doing. All right, so what my dude is doing, and this is what I'm talking about. Like, this gauge doesn't look like the gauge in the game. The gauge in the game has a third needle, right? We have thousands, feet. I don't even know. I'm gonna embarrass myself. What is it? Thousands, hundreds, and feet. So he's using a dial where I think in the game that's actually a needle. So I'm going to replace this whole circle, which is this circle right here. This circle actually rotates in the game, I think. So I'm learning this as I go with you guys, actually. Here we go. Let's keep going. I'm going to test it out in the game in a moment here to make sure that I'm not speaking out of my butt, as they say. So using my polygon tool, I'm going to select the other needle. Yeah, so, I mean, right, but of course, right, that's exactly where they got it. So there's a lot of influence on those watches from, flight stuff. So, man, I'm completely out of it tonight. What is happening? So I'm going to go back into Flight Simulator just for a moment to figure out how exactly that gauge works in the game versus how it works in Air Manager, because again, I'm not going to be here to pretend like I understand all these instruments fully. What I will tell you is that I know how to Photoshop the hell out of it and fix it for you. So I'm going to take a moment here. Right, you must have something else better to do than watch me redo gauges at this moment. There has to be something that you could be doing, like just chilling. Chilling's got to be better than watching me do this. So yeah, what I'm actually trying to figure out right now is, like, there's 3 needles in the game, and Air Manager dude created the first needle as a rotating disc of some sort. So I got to figure out how that works in the game. I don't want to mess it up here. Come on, game. Come on, game. All right, here we go. So we got a 152. We're just going to pick a random airport that's daytime somewhere. Doesn't matter where. There you go. Boom. Let's get in the game. Dude, nothing wrong with that. Just chill out, man. Drop out of the stream at any moment when this gets monotonous and stupendous. Right. Do you have any idea? Like, do you remember, how does that gauge work, man? Like, I understand the small needle and the big needle, but what is happening with that that's thin needle? So here we go. I'm going to really zoom into it. Huh. Dude, I'm so embarrassed. I'm completely lost right now as to how it works. So the problem is, let's see. I'm going to get on autopilot here. Come on, baby. There she goes. There she goes. Yeah. There you go. So that's the big guy right there. That's 10,000. There you go. So that must be, it has to be 10,000. Yep, that's definitely 10,000. All right, so now that we have that straight, perfect. What I'm trying to figure out in a moment here, if we look at Air Manager, come on, baby, where are you? So we're going to go back to Air Manager for a moment and just confirm how his gauge is made, because it matters a lot how he made his gauge. We can't just do our own thing. We have to stay within the bounds of what he did before. So we are going to run this gauge right now. There you go. Okay, I get it. So he's using it as a dial, which is super, super odd because, let's see. Okay, I think I know what I'm going to do with it. Okay, got it. I'm going to explain in a moment. So let's get out of here. Sorry, guys. Sometimes you just got to admit that you don't know what you're talking about. And I don't know what I was talking about, but we now learned, like we always do. We look, we study, and we learn, man. Okay, so we got it. Let's get back to the business at hand. Okay, so we were trying to segregate all these little elements, right? We got the medium needle, we got the large needle, and now we need the 10,000 needle, which is the circle burgle, with this arrow. So what we're going to do is I'm going to select this arrow. I'll show you in a minute here. There you go. I'm going to go down like this. So I'm using this other side right here as reference, if you can see. And I'm going to select, and there we go. So we got that needle. Now, I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. I don't like how I made my selection. I'm going to go Control C, Control Shift V. Now we have that needle. So here we're going to confirm that we have it. The problem is, as you can see, this is what I'm going to try to tell you is these elements are sitting on top of each other. It's simply a picture that I grabbed from Flight Simulator. So what we need to do, as you can see, as I copy that needle, it took a portion of the needle behind it, and you can see that right here. There's a little bit of black showing through. So by holding down this under the lock menu, there's this little checkered mark thing. So if I checker flag thing, so if I hit on it, it locks the layer, and I'm going to select the color next to it. So by holding Alt, the color selector comes up. Hold Alt, right? I'm on the brush because I want to paint, but I need to select the color. So if I hold Alt, I get to pick. You see, Alt brings up this stupid thing, and then when I click with my mouse, I'm actually picking that color. This constraint tool right here in the top, and you can see me in my little menu bar, make sure that when I paint, I'm only painting on top of what's already there. I'm not. Watch what happens when I turn it off. When I paint, now I'm painting everywhere. So it's a super cool tool. Like, you grab the needle, you hit that little thing, and it says, hey, wherever there's paint right now, could you just paint right there? Don't put paint anywhere else. So there you go. That's perfect. So we're going to do that. We got that portion of the needle. Now, let's go back for a moment to what they be doing, right? So what was Air Manager doing? It was doing this right here. Air Manager, oh, my apologies. So in Air Manager, he was designating the 10,000 with this image right here. And we're going to look at it in detail in a moment, but there it is. That's how he's going to designate 10,000. It's on a circle that's rotating around. So again, I don't really know a lot here, but I'm going to go for a little bit of guessing, and I'm going to keep moving. So I'm going to remake this circle, but attach that needle to it. Why is that? What do I mean by that? Well, the way he has it, one second. As you can see, the way he has it, it's just a triangle, and you can see it right here. It's just a triangle on top of the circle, and it's rotating all the way around. And if you watch it, I think even the word Alt actually rotates all the way around, and that's not very realistic. So We'll get to that in a moment, but we'll attach this needle somehow here. So what I'm going to do is continue going down. You'll see in a moment. So remember, we already made these circles here. I'm going to grab one of these circles. I'm going to make a selection with it. So now that we have that selection, I'm going to keep selecting this needle that we made and connect it to the circle just like this. So I'm going to make a selection and come back up like this. There you go. Perfect. I'm going to go Control Shift C. Make sure to select everything on the screen, and then Control Shift V. So it selects through all of the layers here. There we go. So now if I turn the gauge off, what I've done is I've actually completed this needle. I'm changing my mind as I'm going here because I think I can find a way to fix it. I don't like that he's using the 10,000 marker as a circle because he's got the word altimeter on it, and I'm afraid that as it rotates, the word altimeter, check this out, right? Look at this. So his 10,000 marker is actually this whole circle. So as it rotates, the word altimeter will rotate with it. And I don't like that at all. And I'm being super picky right now. So I'm going to show you how to turn that whole circle into a needle. I know it sounds crazy right now, but that's exactly what I'm going to do. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So remember, we have the needle locked. I'm going to hold Alt. I'm going to click on this color. And then I'm going to make this whole needle that color right there. I'm going to turn off the little needle. Let's take care of this 1,000. I'm going to name it Thous. The medium needle, I'm going to name it Hundo, just to keep track. And that tiny guy is 10 thou. So there you go. Now we got them all separated from that image. So we started with this, but now if we look at it, we have this needle, we have that needle, and this needle. So that looks super, super cool right now. Okay, let's fix the hundo. And what I mean by that, if you really, really look at this needle, if I really zoom in, you'll see that in Flight Simulator, these are a reflection of the sky, actually. That was the clouds or something. So what I'm going to do is holding down, again, that constraint tool, hold Alt, I'm going to grab this color right here, and I'm just going to make sure it's one consistent color. I'm going to carefully bring it down to the edge here. So if I go further, look at that. Look what I'm doing. I don't want to do that. So there you go. One color to please them all. I'm going to go to the thou, make sure that bad boy is locked up. Using the same color, I'm just going to paint the needle in. So now we have similar colored needles with no cloud reflections or anything like that. So, and then going up here to the 10 thou, I like what's happening. I don't want to mess with it anymore. I think this looks pretty good. So we got a 10, a thou, and a hundo. Beautiful. All right, now we got the needles. What else is popping in here? Well, there's a circle. It says altimeter. Let's see here. Certified to 20,000 feet. That's what it says in there. So now that we have the needles, we have to just make sure, we're going to duplicate this gauge because this is a reference gauge. So by holding Alt, grabbing on it, moving up, we just duplicated it. I'm going to go Control U, and this hue saturation box comes up. I'm going to turn down the saturation to nothing, to black, all the way down, desaturate the whole thing. I'm taking a moment to think here of my next step. I'm going to grab a color randomly. Remember, I'm on my brush. I'm holding Alt. I'm going to grab this color, and I'm going to start to take away some of this just to clear the working field here a little bit. All right, we don't need the needles in this image, and unfortunately that's kind of destroying a little bit of what we need. But I'll show you how to fix it. So I'm trying to take all of this away. We don't need any of that. We don't need this. We'll need that 0. I'm going to have to recreate it, and I'm sorry about that 0. I don't mean to do you like that. So we come across, you'll see in a moment what I'm doing here. I just need to kind of clear my head of what's happening. We will need the barometer. Unfortunately, I would have liked to keep the millibars, but this gauge is not designed to work in millibar. And I'll show you again. Here it is. He only shows the HG, doesn't show millibar. So, and that would be more difficult to recreate. So stay the course. Let's make this gauge only in HG. Okay, so now that I've done that, this is going to get a little complicated here in a moment, but we have to do all of this. I'm going to hit Control L. So what that does is it brings up this levels, and levels just basically refers to blacks, grays, and whites. And why that's important, because by messing with these items right here, I'm trying to just seclude this image down to only what I need, and that's the letters and the numbers. So by just messing around with this a little bit, I'm trying to really pop these units out just like this. And I'm feeling pretty good about it. And I'll show you in a moment what I'm going to do. Making sure that contiguous is not clicked up at the top. That means anything that's white. I'm going to click on the 9 over here where it's white. Now it selected everything that was white. My fear is that we didn't capture everything. So I'm going to keep going with my marquee tool, making sure that it is selected on 2 squares. Up here in the corner, if you can see my mouse, I'm pointing at 2 squares. What 2 squares means is that you keep adding. Every time you click, you're going to continue adding to your selection. This will be a lot more difficult than the other ones that I've done because it's very, very specific. But there you go. So we're kind of selecting this. Now, I'm just looking around to see, did I capture all the tick marks, all the numbers? I did, and you know, at time I've actually, it looks like I've captured some other things. So I'm getting my square marquee tool, and I'm adding to my selection. Oh, that's not good. I don't want to do that. So if I hold Alt, it reverses the action. So now I'm removing from the selection. So I'm looking around. I feel like I captured a lot. I don't need any of this. You'll see in a moment. I don't need any of the inches here, because that is on a different image, and you'll see in a second when we look back. So we just eliminated that from the selection. And finally, I'm going to go Control C, Control Shift V. Remember, holding Shift puts everything back to where you got it from. So there it is. So we took the numbers. You see that? We took the numbers from this gauge right here. Now we can take this gauge. I'm going to go Control U, and I'm going to make it completely black. So down at the bottom, there's a setting called lightness. It can be fully white, fully black. So would you check this out? All right, man. See you, Rye. So there we go. Perfect. So now we secluded. Now we have numbers on a black background, and I like it. You know, if you know what I'm saying, I like it a lot. Going to the number layer, I'm going to get my brush out. Make sure I'm on a hard brush, and I'm going to delete, but I'm going to erase that. Didn't need that little piece, whatever the heck that was. I'm going to go Control U, and I'm going to try to brighten up this whole layer just a little bit, just like that. Control L, I'm going to try to mess with the levels again. Be careful, because remember, it grabbed a little bit of black around the numbers. You can see that because it gets super pixelated. So there you go, just like that. You want to do just enough, because if we do too much, look how bad they get. So you mess with these levels until you feel like you've achieved a little more. And that looks pretty damn good to me right there. All right, now I'm going to take a moment, just a moment here. To check something. So I've made all of my gauges before purely black and white, and I'll show you The gauge, that was one of the problems that I was having with the gauge that's already made in Air Manager, and I think it was like Michel Thoreau or something. I keep bringing up his name. This guy one day is gonna find me and wring my neck for talking smack about his work. So his adds a little bit of blue in it. He's trying to add all this cool stuff, and I don't blame him. We're going to get to that. All these scratches on the lens. He's making the background red. He's just, but again, background red, I've never seen that in a Cessna. Scratches on the lens, everything's blue. Even the background is slightly bluish. So, you know, it's not so bright, but it's there. So when I look at mine, so we've secluded all of our numbers, and watch what happens. Because we've already made these needles, there they are. They're right on top, so that looks cool. So we've already made that. I'm going to go onto 10,000. That was our 10,000 needle. I'm going to go Control U, and I'm going to desaturate the whole thing, just like that. I'm going to open the 1,000, Control U. I'm going to desaturate the whole thing. I'm going to go to the hundo, Control U, desaturate the whole thing. So now everything is black and white, and I'll show you why. Let's make a basic black and white. Let's not add any unnatural color. We're going to do that at the end by adding this really cool like reflection, what would happen in the actual cockpit. So there you go. Now we have it, but when I look back, it doesn't want to be completely black, so I'm turning it off. I'm looking back here. Okay, we grabbed it. We have it. What else do we need? Well, I see this circle. I don't know if you guys can see it. There's a circle here. I'm going to go and I'm going to grab that circle. By making a rectangle tool path. I'm sorry, my ellipse. I'm going to grab the ellipse, hold shift, and I'm just going to drag it across. When I do that, it's not really dead on, so I'm going to go to my move tool here, and I'm just going to try to nope, I apologize. I'm going to go to my path selection tool. I'm going to select it. I'm just going to move it up, and that doesn't really line up, so I'm just going to Control T, and slowly by holding shift, I'm going to mess around with it until it fits. There you go. So I think that's capturing the whole inner circle. I'm just now starting to realize how this works. How the actual gauge works, why that circle is important. So if you guys are just joining and seeing this, what I was having trouble with is when I looked at this image right here. So I see that he's using, for 10,000, he's using a circle with an arrow on it. And I didn't like that the word altimeter was going to move when the circle rotated on and on. So, but I see why that's necessary, so I'm learning. I'm going to go Control C, Control Shift V. Now we grab that circle, so we let's go back. Control C. We have to be on the right layer. Control Shift V. So we grab that. All right, let's turn all these layers that we were working on. Let's turn them back on. So what do we have? We have all the needles now. We have the base faceplate, and we have this inner circle. Now this inner circle seems to have a cutout in it, so we're going to acknowledge that cutout. What's happening is I have my needles turned on, so I have to turn them off because they're really bothering me. I'm going to cut this out of it. There you go. I'm going to straight out cut it out. Cut it out, boys. And you can see that we copied it from the static gauge, so you can see the other needles are flattened onto it. What I'm going to do is I did last time. I'm going to constrain by hitting the checkered flag thing. I'm going to Alt, pick the color. And I'm just going to draw through all of this. I don't need, I'm going to have to redraw all of this. So there we go. I'm going to go in, boom, boom. It's all one color now. I like the warning bar at the top. I think that says when you've exceeded the certification of 20,000. So we have that. And what we're going to do to this right now is I'm going to make this darker. Control L. Oh, I apologize. Control U for a moment. But remember, we don't want any color. There's a little green hue to it. Perfect. It's gray. Control L. And by pushing these 3 needles together, we are there we go. So it's a pure black circle, and if I use my marquee tool to select, I can select it, Control U again, and now because it was all black, it, you know, that little fade that was happening across the bottom will go away. So I'm going to just make it slightly more gray, and you'll see in a moment why. We don't necessarily want a pure black gauge. We want a little gray because we'll add shadows and highlights and all that stupid stuff. So now that we have it, we're good. Let's go back to the altimeter one, which is down here. I'm going to go Control U, and I'm going to lighten this puppy up a little bit until they almost match with one another. And you'll see why, because we do want them just, okay, slightly darker. And I don't know if that's coming across, but they're just slightly off from one another. And I think you guys can see that. So we lighten it a little bit, and that's the base one. That's this one that the numbers sit on top. Okay. Okay, now that we did that, I'm going to go back to the thou circle. That's what I'm going to name it. Thou circle. Thou circle. I'm going to double click it, and I'm going to hit drop shadow at the bottom. This is the easy way to do it. But remember, it's just going to come in default. It's going to look like this. So I hit drop shadow right here. There you go. So you have to mess with the angle. I can't explain this. I've been doing this for a while. All shadow angles should always come from the top angularly. What I mean by that, from the left going down to the right, or from the right top going down to the left bottom. So you could take this little needle up here and rotate it. I like mine right there, just like that. Next one is distance. You don't want this shadowing. The larger the shadow, that means the further away the objects are from each other. We don't want that. Let's mess with the size. Let's reduce that a little bit. It's just, so keep messing with these attributes until you get it to look just like you wanted it. So I kind of like it here. I think if I just eliminate just a bit more. Distance on 2. Size. And then finally opacity up at the top. We don't need a lot of shadow onto it. So spread maybe. Now let's mess with the size just a bit more. There you go. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Okay, now always check back with the gauge that we have to work with. What you see here is that he has a cutout window to read the barometer. So we have to acknowledge that. So we have to have the cutout window exactly where he has it. We cannot have that cutout anywhere else. And you'll see in a moment why. So what are we cutting out? We're actually cutting out this gauge right here, this blank gray gauge that we just made. So we're going to turn his on, and we're going to just carefully, using this little polygon marquee tool, just go around slowly, because you're trying to, you know, imply a circle here. So the more clicks you do, don't click too fast because you're going to double click and close that selection. So you're just going to click slowly like this until you get a nice selection. So what you're going to do is turn off his gauge, look back at your gauge, just like this, and we're going to hit, make sure you're on the right layer, which is this one right here. You're going to hit delete on your keyboard. Bango. Do you see that? So that's perfect right there. So perfectly, I mean, because what's happening is we're seeing right through to the barometer gauge, barometer setting gauge that's underneath on our image. So okay, so we have that cut out. It's an actual cutout. So if I turn this off, there's nothing underneath. Let's also make sure to delete these. Select that layer 2, which is gauge markings. I'm going to name it so we don't mess it up. I'm going to hit delete again, and that cuts off those little markings that were on it. Taking a moment to think. Sometimes you're going a little too fast. You guys just got to take a moment to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So Just bear with me one moment. I almost made a crucial mistake. So you absolutely, positively have to make sure that your numbers align to his numbers. And that's crucial, because if you don't, his needles have a certain movement of operation that he set to them. And if they don't align to what he did, you're going to be real sour, because you're going to get the wrong readings. So again, I hit Control T to bring up this transform tool so we can make it bigger, smaller, whatever. And now, by holding Shift down, I'm going to mess with it until I believe that my 3 aligns to his 3, my 5 is his 5, and all that, and so on. So that has to be exactly perfect. If not, like I said, you're really going to regret this. And I'm sorry I didn't mention that sooner. And that was a crucial point. I'm feeling pretty good. So guys, what I actually did is, by holding Control down, I can grab on these sides, not the corners, and kind of twist the image. And I'm going to show you in a moment here. Watch this. See? I can actually twist the image. I'm trying to get it to align perfectly. This is crucial that this aligns. All right, I'm feeling pretty good about that right there. All right, let's turn off. There we go. So view, rulers. There we go. Now the rulers have shown up across the top and the sides. I'm going to grab one ruler this way. I'm going to grab one ruler that way, and I'm going to find a dead center. This is also very crucial to this whole process. So making sure, so what we just did is, by bringing up these rulers, we made sure to find the dead center of the circle. Again, his gauges are mathematically placed, his needles are placed on a specific center to make sure that when they rotate, they point at the right thing. So because we took this image of ours, which is this image, when we took it from the game, and you could see what's happening here, it's just that slight movement after I resized it. That slight movement right there shows you that the gauge was slightly warped in perspective. We weren't dead on center when we took the gauge. Anyway, so we have it aligned, feeling pretty damn good. And how do we know? Well, we know 0 is now dead on to this blue line. We know 5 is dead on, and we know that this halfway between 7 and 8 is dead on. So feeling pretty damn good about it. And wouldn't you know, even the barometer pointer is pointing dead center. So that's beautiful. Okay, now let's keep going. What I don't like is the fact that I cut out my little window here. Don't like that at all. So I'm going to paint it back in, and I'll show you why. It's because we have to work to a new center. This is going to get a little complicated, but just bear along, and this will be fun. So I'm not sure if this is a tutorial or it's just a Photoshop show off. I'm not sure. Okay, so I made my path. I moved it up to make sure that its 4 corners of the circle, if a circle can have corners, are dead on to that line. And you can see I'm sitting dead on to the line, more or less, right? Because it's within a pixel or so. I'm going to go Control C, Control V, and I made a duplicate of it, Control T, and now I'm going to stretch that duplicate. And the cool thing is, in Photoshop, things will always snap to these paths, so it's snapping exactly dead center. That first circle is here, Control C, Control V, Control T. So I made a copy, I pasted it, and then now I'm always holding Shift when I stretch these circles, because if I let go of Shift, look what happens, right? If I hit Shift, it brings it back into submission. So we're going to Shift and continue to stretch this gauge all the way to, I would say, right here. Now, what I'm trying to do is recreate that window in the exact same spot that he had it. So we can go a little bigger. Control T, and holding Shift, I'm going to stretch all the way. I'm going to move it, make sure it's sitting dang centered. And finally, there it is. All right, so why did we do all that? You're about to see in a moment. All right, I'm going to stretch that inner one just a little more. Here we go. Perfect. All right, feeling super. I'm feeling super good about this. How you feeling? You feeling good? You feeling good? Okay. All right. Turn off his gauge. No offense. We don't want it. Thank you. I'm going to use this outer circle to make a selection. I'm going to make that selection. I'm going to use this inner circle. I'm going to click on it with my little black pointer. I'm going to go right click, make a selection, but I want to subtract because now we have this whole circle selected. This next circle is going to subtract from that selection, and we are left with F my life. Get that pointer, drag across all of them. This is what I said, that this is complex Photoshop stuff. Drag across all of the circles. And go up here and make sure that you are on combined shapes. I don't want to, this is a whole other Photoshop tutorial, but that has to be on. Now, I know this is overwhelming to you guys, but again, I've been doing this for over 20 years and you guys probably not been doing it at all. So it seems overwhelming, but we'll get there. So here we go. I'm going to select that circle. I'm going to select the inner circle and subtract from selection, say OK. And now we're left with, I'll show you in a moment what's happening. Now we're left with this cool thing. When I draw, and I'm going to pick this color, I can draw just inside that selection. That's super cool. But remember, it's not drawing that we need to do. We are actually trying to delete that little window. Do you remember this window right here? So click on path, click away from that work path. Double click on it first. Double clicking on it allows you to give it a name, say OK, and then it saves it. Layer, and we don't need the whole circle. So you see this inner circle that we selected. We just need this portion, this trapezoidal portion. So holding down, I'm going to get my polygon selection tool, hold down Alt, boom, boom, and I'm going to go all the way around like this. And you'll see in a moment why. I'm just trying to eliminate the outside. There you go. So we're left with this. Beautiful. Beautiful. You're beautiful. That's for sure. So now that we have that, we're going to just hit delete. Make sure you're on this black gauge, which is this. I'm going to delete away. Now we have an open window into my soul. Open window into my soul. There you go. And we're going to go up to the gauge markings, which is these. We're also going to delete that. Why are we doing that? Well, because, you know, these little gauge markings are going to show through that little window if we don't delete them. So now we got that out of the way. I feel it's so good these days, you know? And then I noticed that this gauge is not perfectly round. And so I'm going to use my black pointer. I'm going to grab this outside circle. Control C, Control V, Control T. And I'm going to stretch it to recreate this outside circle. I just want to make sure we have a perfect circle because right now I don't think that we do. So there we go. Feeling pretty good. It's actually dead centered. Boom, hit enter, lock it in, right click, make selection. And now there we go. Now we have a new selection. I'll show you in a moment. So all right. What I don't like, and I'm just noticing right now, that some of my markings are kicking in and out of the circle. So that means, this is what I'm going to do in a moment here. I'm going to select this inner line right here, right click, make selection, say OK, and make sure I'm on the gauge marking. Control Shift I reverses the selection. I know this is super complicated stuff, but that's fine, guys. You got this. You got this. And I'm going to go around with a eraser, and I'm just going to erase away So see, that kind of centers it, but what's happening is I'm losing some of my marking. There we go. So now it's a little more concentric looking. All right. I'm gonna turn off my needle. Let's check it again. Okay, so what are we missing? We're missing a 0 because we had to erase it, and 7, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, great. So we have to redo the 8 and the 0. I'm going to use my typing tool. I'm going to just type 0 and try to find that exact font. I'm going to go with Arial. I'm sure, you know, it's a 0. So I'm going to go to Arial. I'm going to click on the type tool. Make sure it's white. Select the white color. Boom, boom. Done. So now that we have it like this, let's try to match it. I know their 0 is slightly different, but I'm not going to sit here and go through all the fonts. I say that, but in a moment I might go through all the fonts. There you go. So I'm going to Control T, holding Shift down. I'm just going to try to shape it until it fits, just to redo our 0, because we rudely deleted it because that was where the needle was going through. So there we go. We got a 0. I'm feeling pretty good. Now, make sure, let's turn off the 0. Go back to the base layer, which is here. Oh, I apologize. The gauge marking. And using your eraser, just erase away that leftover 0. We don't want it. We don't need it. Put your 0 back up. We're cool. Got it. Okay. Now, using the gauge markings, I need that big point, not the pointer, but I need that little marking that shows that that's a 0. So I'm going to select it from the gauge marking. Control C, Control Shift V, Control T. So I selected it, I copied and pasted it, I'm moving it, I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to put it where it belongs, which is right here. Perfect. All right. Control E will mash it down, so now that little tick is on top. Oh, before I mash it down, I'm going to make a copy of it by holding Alt. I have a copy of it, Control T, and then I get to move it away because we're missing another one here. So carefully, I'm going to place it. That looks pretty damn good to me. Rotate it just a bit more. Control T, rotate it just a bit more. Pretty good. Okay, and now number 8. Let's make an 8. By dragging this 0, holding Alt, and just pulling up on it, just going to make another copy. Pull it down, highlight it with your type tool, and type 8. Pretty good. Not the same 8, but again, I'm not going to be picky. You know, anyone who's into fonts and anything will say, "Oh, that's not the same 8." So remember, because we have an 8, I'm going to go to the gauge marking. Here, let me show you. And using the eraser tool, I'm just going to erase that old 8. We don't want it anymore. Boom. There you go. So we got our 8, we got our 0. We're feeling pretty good. We got the 2 tick marks. See, I keep turning them on and off. And this is what I'm going to do. 8, I'm going to click on the 8. I'm going to Control E. Nope. I'm going to click on the 0 too by holding Shift, right? So click on the 8, hold Shift, click on the 0, layer, layer, gauge marking. It's all of these highlighted, and then finally Control E. Let's call it crush it down, smash it down, smash, smash, smash. Kai. If anyone got that reference, hit me up in the chat. Okay, so now we rebuilt basically the numbers. What comes next, my friends? We have the numbers, we have the inner circle. Here's the cool part that they're doing, and we need to follow suit. When I look at he has a window cutout in that inner circle. That window reveals the markings on the main gauge, right? You see through this tiny window, and you see this. And when that 10,000 unit starts to rotate, it starts to cover this. So it shows you when you're not in the safe zone, because the gauge is only certified to 20,000 feet, right? So now, going back to our thing, we have to turn on his gauge. We have to bring it all the way to the bottom like this. And you can see that my trapezoid and his trapezoid do not align. So that's a big problem right there. I'm going to select my circle that I built, Control T, and then Alt Shift will hold it on center and allow me to move it. Oh, it got away from me. Control T, Alt Shift, and I'm just going to, oh, come on, man. Control T, Alt Shift, and I'm gonna grow it a little bit, just like, well, actually no, I apologize. I'm talking out of my butt here. We don't need to place it exactly where he had it. It just has to be exactly on center. So the thing that does matter is we got to move the circle back up by where all of these corners or all of these half markings match my my rulers that I've set as a dead center. Okay, so I finally got it together here. Okay, what we do need is to put these markings on the layer below. So what I will do, making sure that I'm on that layer, I'm going to use my magic selection tool and just select the white. And because not contiguous is on, because that's not selected, it selects anything that's white on that layer. Control C, Control Shift V. So what we just did, guys, we made a copy of that. So there it is right here. Watch, I can move it around. Control Z just puts it right back where it was. Control Z. There you go. I'm going to drag it all the way down. Remember, it has to be on top of this layer right here. Control E, and I'm going to smash it down. So there you go. I just smashed it down, and it's part of the gauge underneath. Now, the thou circle needs to have an open window. I call it open window to my soul. That window needs to be exactly the same size and shape as what it's trying to show through. So I'm going to use my selection tool and create a window. So by doing like this, making this shape that matches the outside perimeter of the other shape and hitting delete, there you go. We just literally delete it right through. You see that? And because we put those markings underneath, now you can see right through to them. And wouldn't you know it, when you have what's called effects, drop shadow, anything you delete just creates a drop shadow automatically. So this is sick. You sick puppy. Then, the 10th thou needle needs to come into play. And you'll see in a moment here. I'm going to put that all the way back on top. All these needles need to sit on top of everything in the game and in Photoshop. So there we go. Now we're cooking with fire. We got the 10,000 needle. I'm going to turn it on. It's not centered. So how do I know that? Because, you know, I copied it with a circle to always know where the center is. And I'm going to manually move it up. How do I know? Now, if I really, really zoom in, you can actually count pixels. That's how far I zoomed in. And you can tell that I'm dead centered, but I'm not dead center side to side. So there you go. That's feeling super saucy. You know what I'm saying? Super sauce. So finally, we got that boy on center. Let's bring his cousin up. 1,000. 1,000 is definitely not on center. So I'm going to zoom in again. Control T. And same thing, because he has a circle as a reference, I can easily place it even visually. I don't even need to measure anything. So pretty damn close to center, I would say. We're within a pixel or half a pixel, so it's actually very difficult to discern if it's center or not center when we zoom out. It's within a fraction. So Control L brings up this levels menu. Remember, I just want to make a bit more out of it like this. Just darken it. Make sure that the needle is a little bit wider. There you go. Just like that. So when I zoom out, that's looking pretty good. And finally, the hundo needs to come into play. So the hundo will sit on top. Same thing, I'm using this circle here that we grabbed. And that's how we know that this will sit. And of course, you know, watch this. Like when I move it, you can see the other circle underneath. So when they match, you'll obviously visually see that they just sat on top of one another. So that's pretty good right there. That's positioned well. Control L. Let's try to get it to match. So let's just darken it a little bit. Bring the white a little bit. Darken it a little bit. Just try to get it to look the same type of color as the background with shadow, right? So then I don't like how much shadow has come through here, so I'm just gonna Select about this much of it. Selecting a bit more. Control U, and I'm just going to lighten the whole thing. I'll say okay. Control U, I'm going to darken the whole thing. So it's like an overall lightening and darkening. Now, here's what I'm going to do. Every single one of these is going to get a little bit of a shadow. Double click on that layer. Drop shadow. You don't want to go too far in either direction with the shadow on this one. So the reason is, when this rotates, that shadow is going to look super odd. So I'm going to do what's called like an even shadow all the way around, just like that. I'm going to say okay. And the shadow really helps to like read the gauge needles against the gauges. I'm going to go to thou, double click it. Come on, baby. Double click yourself. Drop shadow. Same thing. Distance 0. And then we're going to go to 10,000. And so let's just, for a moment, let's just take a moment here. Turn off the hundo, the 1,000, and let's look at it. What I want to do is connect. I'm going to connect to 10,000 boy. First of all, we're going to fix its how dark it is. So Control U. I'm going to lighten it a little bit like this. So it kind of matches the numbers around it. It's not purely white because we want it to stand out. And finally, we need to merge it with the thou circle because the circle Merkle, and the 10th are actually one and the same unit. I'm going to grab it, drag it down, boy. And I'm going to Control E. Control E puts it right on top. So now this is all, watch this. This is all one and the same. You see that? So Control Z puts it right back where it was. Okay, but now it's underneath the numbers. Jeepers, I can't get a break here. So drag it up on top. Drag the whole thing back on top of the numbers. Perfect. We cooking with fire, boys. So we started here with a flat image of a gauge that we caught from Flight Simulator. We captured it by hitting print screen. And we are trying to improve on what we're given in Air Manager because Air Manager looks like this. And I'm like, yo, really cool, I guess, right? I don't know. Very nice. But that is not the gauge in a 152, bro. When I look back, a gauge in a 152 looks like this. That is not this gauge. So that's what we're here to do, boys. So, made pretty good progress. I'm getting tired. Been doing this for a while now. Going on 1 hour and 17 minutes. Fumbled for about 20. So let's keep going. All right. Oh, what do we got? Let's turn it all on and turn it all off. We have a base layer. I'm going to turn it off. We have numbers. I'm going to turn them off. We have the thou circle. Turn it off. We have the thou. We're going to turn it off. And the hondo. We got it all, boys. Let me take a sip. I've been talking for an hour. Ooh, hydration. And just to be clear, for anyone who joined, we definitely cannot do the millibars. In the airplane itself, the gauge is able to do millibars and so on. But what's happening is Air Manager, whoever builds these gauges, positions every needle and every piece to work specifically. All we can do is modify within the limits. If I try to do my own thing, it just won't work properly. So I'm just going to improve his graphics. This is not rebuilding or reprogramming the gauge. I'm simply graphically improving it. If you think of it, same exact jeans, same exact size. I'm just going to change the color of your jeans. You know what I mean? I don't know why I'm talking about your jeans right now, but I am. So if you're wearing jeans, I'm changing the color of your jeans. What happened? Excuse me? All right, let's keep going. Why are you talking so much, brah? All right, what else is going on? Let's go back to the main layer. Here's the cool thing. Wagwan boy. When I look at this gauge, there's a couple of things I can instantly steal from Flight Simulator gauge. The outer ring and what I call the inner ring. Check me out, right? I already made a selection path tool. Right click, make a selection. That makes this. Then I'm going to, Control D. I don't need that selection just yet. I'm going too fast. Control C, Control V, Control T. I just duplicated that path that was on the outside. And holding Shift, I'm actually constraining it. And I'm going to basically try to select that outer circle. And I'm going to do it again. Control C, Control V, and Control T. This time I will not hold the Shift tool. And I'll show you why. Because the gauge was kind of crooked in the game. What I mean by crooked, we took a picture in perspective. I need to capture that. No. Control T. I'm going to hold Shift. I'm going to show. We're going to have to. We might rebuild it from scratch here in a moment. I'll show you how to do that too. All right, feeling pretty good about that inner. There you go. So what we're trying to do is just make sure to capture what I call ring 1, which is the outside ring, and ring 2, which is the inside ring. So, as I always said, if you make a circle, use these guides, these green guides, and make sure that damn circle is sitting dead straight, because otherwise you're whack. It's going to come across super wacky. So, finally, that's on center. Finally, that's on center. I'm going to go control, right click. I'm going to make a selection. We grabbed it. I'm going to click on this inner ring. I'm going to go make selection, but subtract from the first selection. So now we have the outer ring selected. Making sure I'm on that layer. Control C, Control Shift V. And guess what? Now we have a ring. Check this out. Look at this. We just stole the ring from the other image. And we have that. Now we need the inner ring. I kind of like it. I don't even want to do anything with it. That looks super sexy. Why you look so good? You know what I mean? Then we go in, we say, nope, we want this inner ring. So make a selection from that line. Then using this inner circle, make a selection of that inner circle, but I want to subtract from the current selection. So now I've just selected the outer ring. Click away from the path. Control C, Control Shift V. Now we have the inner ring. Check me out. We have it all, boys. But because it's sitting on the outside, I have a little bit of a problem with it. Here, check this out. Control U. I'm going to darken the whole sucker up like this. And I'm going to do something that, you know, only I know what to do because I've been doing this for a while. But I'm going to lock that layer by using the checkered flag here. So again, whenever we do that, if we take a color and we draw, it only draws inside that wherever pixels are found. So let me make that a little clearer what's actually happening here. I've explained this before, but it doesn't hurt to explain it again. So there's a black ring, and if I don't have that on, well, if I take a white brush, well, I can just draw white anywhere. But if I click this, it just locks that in, and I can draw just on top of it, just like this. Okay, so I have a tablet, so I'm going to cheat here in a moment. You know, I'm drawing with my mouse most of the time as I do this, but I also have a tablet, like a professional drawing tablet. So I'm going to cheat because you can do this with a mouse too. You just have to be very careful and turn your opacities down. Now that we have that black circle, I need to, it's got a certain dimension to it. So it's going to be shadowed at the top and highlighted at the bottom. Grab your brush, select the color white. Make sure you're on one of these feathery brushes, these beauties. And I'm just going to go boom. Oh, make sure it's locked in with that checkered flag. And I'm just going to go like this. You see that? I'm just acknowledging that it's catching a highlight. Okay? Now I'm done. I'm going to go Control U. I'm going to lighten the whole sucker up a little bit. Say, okay, Control U. I'm going to darken the whole thing together. It's almost like putting a tint over it. So there we have it. Double click it. Hit Bevel Emboss. But you have to be really careful, right? So the depth of it, the softening of it, and then the size of it. And just let's mess with these three attributes to create that edge that we had. So that was in the outside and on the inside. So there we go. Smooth, chisel hard is the option. And there we go. Now we're going to make an edge just like that. There we go. So just checking up on our work here. Let's bring this up to the top. You see that? We're just trying to kind of intimate those small little bevels that are created. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think it's a little bit too light. I'm just going to keep darkening it. There you go. That's the inner. Okay, perfect. Now, let me show you something super cool. So, I'm going to turn off everything. This is when we add reality. The only reason we're even doing this is so that it looks better and more real. This is a continuously same color circle. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to lock it up. And using my white brush, really, really big brush, I'm going to go super huge this time. Just going to give it a little bit of a fade of white. Why? Because light's coming from the top, right through the windshield of the plane, and it's lightening from the top. Everything at the top is darker. So I'm actually going to get a little black and just hint a little bit of black over it. Now, why did I do that? Because when I turn everything back on, wouldn't you know it? Oh, that looks really, really good. It might maybe a little too good. And what I mean by that, it's like, come on, man, maybe let's It's too good. It looks almost concave. There's so much shadowing on it, but it's fine. We can easily fix that. We're gonna darken it by about 20, just like that. And yeah, as you can see, it's actually darkening those lines on the inside, but that's okay. That's fine. I'm gonna darken it just a little bit. You don't want to go too much. Perfect. Sniffle, sniffle. My apologies. Perfect. I think I'm feeling pretty good. Let's check. It does still look like the gauge that we had. What I don't like is that the markings have gotten a lot smaller. I had to crop them away because they were looking a little twisted. But anyways, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I mean, we could spend another hour making those markings longer, but that's looking really good. So, perfect. Now that we got this far, you have no idea how close we are. We're very close to the end. We have everything we need. Let's finally open what we should see through this window, which is not the millibars, but the other one. We see his barometer dial. We're going to take it, grab it, and bring it up to the top here, and it will open up. So we're not going to mess with it, okay? We're actually going to just control U, take the saturation out of it. If it had any color, we're taking that completely out. I'm going to say okay, and then control S, we're going to save right on top of where it was. So basically, essentially what we just did is we just basically made it black and white. It had a little bit of color before. I didn't like it, so I made it black and white. We're going to grab it now that it's black and white and drag it right on top, and I'll show you why. We're going to drag it right on top of here, and wouldn't you know it, it opens up straight up in there. I'm not going to resize it, even though it's not coming through the window for some reason. That's fine. We're not going to resize it. We're going to leave it alone, and you'll see why in a moment. We'll resize it if we have to, because I cut my window exactly where his window was, but somehow this is a little bit smaller. I don't know what's happening, but anyways, let's just keep going. We made it black and white, and that's all that matters. Now, I am going to, little by little, save all of these little creations that we made. So, one, don't turn off the rings, my apologies, leave those on, those are decorative. Turn off all the needles, everything, including the thou circle, and let's leave there you go, the numbers, we're going to leave that on, and we're going to leave the base layer. Okay, file, right here at the top. We're going to go file, save as. Because we open it up directly from Air Manager, when you go save as, it actually tries to save exactly where it came from. I'm going to make sure it's a PNG because that's what it was when we started. And wouldn't you know it, when you switch to PNG, all of these come up. We want to save it exactly, so we're going to click on this, give it the same name, and say save. You want to overwrite it? This is the big puppy right here. That's why we cloned it, because if we're changing it, we're changing a clone. We can throw it in the trash if it doesn't work out. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say okay. Wouldn't you know it? Look at this. Look at this, boys. When we go back in here, we have already remade it. We have this, so we just got to keep going down. We just got to keep going down this path here. So the long needle is what I call the hundo. So what we will do, this is crucial right here. Check this out. So we're gonna have to open that. We have to open this needle here. Now that we have it, we're going to have to take our needle which is this one. I'm going to have to remove this window a little bit and show you why. I'm going to hold shift and grab it. Hold shift and pull it into here. Come on now. There you go. Come on now. All right, let's grab it from here. You can always grab from that. There you go. Perfect. We're going to zoom in, and we're going to try to align the two to make sure that they're dead on. This really, really matters. I mean, I cannot express to you how important it is that these really line up right now, because we're literally redoing his needle. So we better be, you know, using the same actual center of needle. There you go. So if we turn ours off, I'm gonna turn the opacity down on it a little bit. Yeah, I'm sitting pretty. It's looking good. I would say that's dead on center. Okay, so that's looking good. I'm gonna turn his off. Make sure my opacity is all the way up. And I'm literally gonna hit Control S. All we're doing is replacing his, right? So Control S brings up this. Because it's a multi-layer file, it will want to default to TIFF or Photoshop. I'm gonna go to PNG. Make sure that we're doing the long needle. It's already named that. I'm gonna say save. Do you want to replace it? Hell yeah, I want to replace it. And say okay. We're almost there, guys. So now it's replaced. Let's keep going. Let's go back to his folder and see what he had in there. So we just did the long needle. Let's do the small baby boy needle. So this will be the the thousands. Let's go. Let's find it in our multi-layer file here. I'm going to hold shift and drag it. Boom. It's right on top. It looks like a little cravat. A little cravat. Remember, center to center. So this is the center of my needle. Let's find the center of his needle. My goodness, I'm getting really, really worried right now, and I'll show you in a moment why. I'm going to grow it, but I think the center of his needle is dead on right there. Yep. Jeez Louise, this is not good. Oh my goodness, we have to absolutely find that dead center, otherwise this will not work. There you go. Perfect. That's exactly where it is. So the dead center is where the inflection point of his needle is right there. So I'm going to take ours and place it using our circle as a guide. Make sure that we're dead on, if you know what I'm saying, right? So I'm going to bring a guide here. That's dead on. So I'm going to move my circle. So it's right in the middle of that crosshair. So then I know pretty good that this needle will be positioned. Because it will rotate around that pivot point. Let's turn his off. File, save as, PNG. It's already named small needle. We're going to say save. Do you want to override it? Absolutely, we're going to override it and say okay. Take a little sippy. Stay hydrated, my boys. Excuse me, my goodness. Now, I think we're almost there. Let's go back to our main file. What did we need? Just to make sure. We got the... we have to save out the 1,000 needle. So we're going to turn off all of these layers and only leave on the 10,000, which is right here. Remember, we made it. So that, my friends, will have to go on top of this one. So his look like this, and about an hour ago I explained why that's not good enough for me. So I'm going to replace this circle that he made with mine, because that's what the Cessna gauge looks like originally. So I'm going to grab it. I'm going to grab this one, holding shift, and I'm just going to drag it right on top of this window. Boom. Let's go big in the paint, or go home. I'm going to turn it off for a moment, and I'll show you why. Ah, dang it. I grabbed the wrong one, guys. My apologies. I'm getting tired. Here we go. It's the 10,000. I'm going to highlight it, hold shift, and I'm going to drag it right over here. Boom. Sits right on top. Let's maximize this window a little bit and just make sure. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to make sure it's locked. I'm going to take my brush. I see a little discrepancy here. And I'm going to get this brush right here and just paint a little more gray, because it was looking type goofy. All right. Now, this is going to get really weird. The only thing that matters is that they're center to center. So once again, we're going to grab our view rulers. I'm going to grab and find the true center of all of this. Now, how do I know it's the center? Because it just snaps. It does this weird thing where it just snaps on center. We'll find it here in a moment. Just like that. I hope that's the center. I hope I'm not being stupid here. Yeah, that's pretty dang good. That's the center right there. And you know because the shape shows that we're right on center. So perfect. All right, there we go. That is beauteous. We do not want to change the size of this. Remember that somewhere underneath that window showcases this this marking. So there's one thing that I'm forgetting, and that is it should say the words. I'm going to grab my typing tool, and it should say Alt for altimeter or altitude, but it shouldn't be so big, right? So Control T, holding Shift. We're just going to, come on, man. Holding Shift. We're just going to make this a little smaller here. Making sure that it's white, right? That's the color that we need. Actually, it's about this color right there. And I can see it. You guys probably can't see it, but it's over here. I'm going to drag it, move it on top. Now it says Alt. I'm going to shrink it down a bit more. And remember, there was a tiny little detail that really mattered, and that was that. So that's the whole point, right? Why are we doing this? We're doing this to make sure we're making the most realistic gauge possible. It says certified to 20,000 feet. So everything 20.000 feet. We have to do all of that, guys. Otherwise, what's the point of all of this? So by holding Alt down, I duplicated that, or you could just hit the T tool and type again. Okay, certified, then enter to 20.000 space feet. But as you can see, it's called justified properly. So we're going to highlight it, go up to the top, make sure it's justified on center. Boom. Control T, and let's hold Shift down to constrain it. And make sure that it sits right about there. I don't like that the letters are way too close together. So highlight the whole thing. Go up in this menu, which can come up like, it's up in the windows. It is the characters. Okay, so now that we have it, we are going to, number one, space them apart a little better so people can read them. See, that spaces the letters apart. I know this is extremely complicated stuff. I mess with lettering and stuff all the time in Photoshop, so that's why mine is so wacky. And then I'm going to go to Auto. Auto, make sure that these are spaced in a way that feels natural to read. So I'm going to go certified to 20,000 feet. Pretty good. I'm going to position it right there. That's nice. That's so nice. Why are you so nice? And I'm going to go Control. Make sure to turn off his layer. We don't want his layer anymore. And finally, File, Save As. It goes right back where it should be. PNG. We're not going to rename it because we are messing with the round needle, which is what I call the 10,000 marking. And I'm going to say Save. Do you want to replace it? Of course I do. Right? So we're going to override his. Guys, literally we're done. We're going to test it out in a moment here. So now I'm going to go back to his folder, and I'm going to make sure. I'm going to double click on this. That's my needle for sure. I remember making it. That's my needle. I made it. This is the glass, and I'll show you in a moment. This is a last layer that goes on top of everything to give it this illusion of reality. We'll come back to this in a moment. You guys can stop watching after this if you don't want any more reality. That's my needle for sure. So I made all of these. Perfect. I'm feeling super sauced up right now. This is all goofy. Like it. All right, bring up Air Manager. We're literally there because we continuously overwrote those files. Here it is. Damn, boys, go back to your default panel that you made. This is the gauge that we've been redoing. You're like, well, what the hell are you talking about, bro? Why you worked on it for so long, and why does it look like this? Well, you'll see in a moment. And let's run it. Let's run the gauge. Oh. My apologies. I'm getting way ahead of myself here. What we can do is go over to Create Edit, and we can actually run it by itself on top of anything else. So there you go. So let me explain what just happened so you're not like, what in the frank is this guy talking about? So what happens is, and this is crucial, when you go here and you look at it, it looks the same because it's using a preview image. A preview image is just a collapsed image of everything that we built. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of this because we worked on it over here. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to grab the needle. I'll show you in a moment because the problem is we made corrections to it individually. I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to just make sure that only our files are left. So I'm going to delete his files from all of these. I'm going to go back to what I call the main file, which is right here. This is my main file. The reason I'm pulling these aside, you'll see in a moment what's happening here. So this was where we first started in Flight Simulator. Remember, we grabbed it from here. All right, so we're going to minimize that. We don't need that. Okay, now we got this needle. Almost there, guys. I see one guy watching right now, one lady watching, or somebody's watching, and they're like, okay, just get to it, my brother. I got you, homie, because I also want to go to bed, so. All right, this one, and then finally this one. Now, what the hell am I doing right here? I modified these later. So when I was in our main gauge, we had all of these. We had the big needle, small needle, and the circle. We were sitting pretty in here, and unfortunately, I went and modified them later. So I'm going to literally delete that needle, delete this needle. I'm going to delete that needle, and we're going to be left with nothing. But that's cool because we have them. Hold Shift, grab it, and drag it here. It goes right on top. You'll see in a moment why. Hold Shift, grab it, drag it right on top. You'll see why this matters. Hold Shift, grab it, drag it right on top. And just center it a little bit. There you go. Now, turn on the rings that we made. Turn on the numbers. Turn on this. And finally, don't forget, there's a background to this whole disaster. So turn on that. And come on, baby. And we're missing the barometer. So I'm going to go back and grab that barometer disc, which was here. We need to basically create a flattened preview image. I'm going to go here. And there it is. I'm going to stretch it out like this. Make sure it goes underneath so we can see right through it. Ah, now I understand why his barometer gauge was so small. Oh my goodness, this is so complicated. So, you know, that's why I stick to fixing these gauges and I don't actually go in and, there you go. They have their own center, and that center is not the actual center of the gauge. Oh my gosh, this guy's fire. Whoever built this, I give him credit. So when you drag it, there you go. Now she looks like she's sitting pretty. There you go, perfect. So what did I do all this for? Because we're trying to make a preview image so you don't get confused later. Now, I have a couple more details that I'd like to add here. And I wish I knew where I kept them. There we go. I try to stay organized, but sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, where's my stuff? You'll see in a moment. Yeah, I'm completely struggling right now trying to find my gauges. What is happening? Come on, baby. Come on, come on. Yeah, I'm completely freaking lost in here. What is happening right now? Okay, come on, come on. Get it together, get it together. Thumbnails. Jesus, I made all of these detailed. I'm literally going to lose my mind in a moment. So I made all these gauges before, and I'm trying to find that folder of details that I had. Ah, son of a biscuit. I'm going to get there, I promise. Nothing that a good old search tool won't fix. Okay, is it in my game drive? There you go. Jesus, my gosh, I made you all wait for that. That was stupid. Oh my gosh. This is how organized I stay. This is so freaking stupid. Where is that folder? My goodness, man. That is so fucking, excuse me. That is so stupid right now. Okay, all right, well, what are we trying to do here? There we go. Alan. Bring Alan into the game. This whole thing was about bringing Alan to the top. And what do I mean by that? It's like, well, I needed the stupid Alan bolt. Oh my god. If I were you guys, I'd just drop off the freaking... There you go. So just adding these a little bit, I think, adds to the, you know, the reality of it all. Seriously, I would not watch this stream anymore at this point. This guy just freaking struggled to find his own assets in his computer. All right, I'm going to click on one of them. I'll make it a little bit smaller, and you'll see why in a moment. I don't like that it could interfere with the barometer setting knob. I'm going to hit Enter, click on this one, delete it, hold Alt, drag it over. Photoshop's pretty smart. It knows how to, like, center things. There you go. And finally, I'm going to take it to here. Perfect. Excuse me for my sniffles. All right, so now that we have all of this, I'm going to go again. File, Save As. We're almost there. This is going to be on and popping in a moment. This has to be saved as a JPEG or a PNG. I'm going to go up one level to here because the preview image is a PNG file, and you'll see preview extra large icons. We're trying to replace this image and making sure all the layers are showing. Called preview. We're going to click on it, say save. We're going to override it. Absolutely. Yeah, we're trying to change it. And we're going to verify our work. Bring up the folder. Here's the folder right here where Air Manager drags its all of its images from. We're going to go view, extra thumbnails, extra large. And there it is. We just created it. Now, why did we do all that? Because when I go into Air Manager, I'm going to shut it down. Shut it down. Anytime you make a change like this, it will not automatically update. So you have to shut it down, turn it back on, and here in a moment, hopefully this will come to fruition. Stepped away for a moment. My apologies. Real life got in the way. And there it is. We are on default. And we just messed around with the altimeter, but we lost that panel, and I'll explain in a moment why. So we're going to make a new panel real quick. No big deal. I'm going to say add, and we're just going to look for that gauge. Remember, we just made the altimeter gauge, but the one that we made, so we're going to type in 152. Sorry, 1 second. I'm trying to end this on a positive note here. So our camera just turned its battery, and wouldn't you know it, we're going to be looking super sexy up in a minute here. Check this out. Bam! Your friend Sim was up in the house again. Check this out. Come on, baby. Let's go. There we go. Finally. I have a charged battery. Okay, remember, we worked on the altimeter. CF redo is what we called it. Here it is. Click on it, add it, because we changed the preview for it. Wouldn't you know it? It looks beautiful. So, I'm going to go to create, edit. Of course, it is altimeter CF redo right here. I'm going to hit run and it will run. So check it out, boys. There it is up in the top, looking super nice. You know, the first thing you should look at is like, do the needles point at the right thing? I don't like that other needle does not point. So what I mean is, I'll show you in a moment here. So I don't like that this needle doesn't point at 0. So I wonder if that's an okay condition. So what I mean by that is like, let's add the default gauge. I'm going to add another gauge, which is the one that comes with the game. So I'm going to type in 152 ALT altimeter. My goodness, I'm getting tired. An instrument. So we're going to find the altimeter. 152 ALT. There it is right there. I added it, and I'm going to run that gauge and just check for a moment. Come on now. Come on now. Stop running this gauge. See, that looks dead on center. So altimeter, create edit. I'm going to go to let's search for it. 152 alt. I want to make sure I'm looking at his, not mine, which is right here. And I'm going to run it. Oh my goodness, his is dead on. It's dead on. My goodness, guys. Oh, shoot. All right, yeah, I found the problem. This is it. This is it right here, guys. I'm sorry. So, although it's so stupid. So, did you see what just happened, right? So, my needle, I saved it in the off position. You can't do that. So, you got to Control T this sucker. You got to rotate him. You got to make sure he's dead even. If not, that's exact. I'm like, why is my needle off? Control T, rotate him a bit, walk him around. Do not lose your center. Don't lose your center. Don't ever lose your center, if you know what I'm saying. There we go. And I'm going to do a little trick here. So watch this in a moment. You're going to understand. I'm going to use this marquee tool. I'm going to select up to the green line, which it will snap to it. I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to delete half of it. Control D, deselect it. I'm going to make a copy of it by holding Alt, Control T, and I'm going to flip it on the horizontal. You know why? Because now I know there's no way in heck that this is not dead on. I'm going to make sure that the effects are not turned on at all for any of these. And you'll see in a moment why. Alright, so now we got it dead on. I'm going to go smash it down and then turn the effects on. Now, beautiful. So, quickly, File, Save As. I'm going to save it as a PNG. And just be careful because I'm getting super tired here. It was the small needle, yes, and it was crooked, yes. And I'm going to hit save and replace it, yes. Perfect. Then I'm going to go over to my main gauge and fix it. Here is just for the preview, so at this point it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to turn it a little bit. I'm going to walk it over, whatever, who cares. There you go. But everything has to be perfect. We've gone to this level of detail, so might as well. Before I do that, hold on a moment. As I said earlier before, he has a layer of what's called scratches. And if you look at it, the reason he's putting scratches on top is because he does add to the reality of it. It's like, well, the gauge is older, the plane's older, whatever, right? Check this out. A long time ago, I'm going to show you something. I made this. What this is two dudes. I think this guy's name is Bruno. He's a big YouTube star. He flies. I wish I knew his channel name. I would give him props right now. This guy and his best friend were taking a flight from New York to Chicago or something. I took a picture of his YouTube video. I blurred it and I warped it in a circle. And that's a whole other Photoshop tutorial to make it look like when you're looking at this gauge, it's reflecting you and your best friend flying. And wouldn't you believe it, at that small scale, this actually adds up. Check this out. Check me out, boys. When I grab it, I'm going to drag it right on top. Look at this. Look what happened. Do you see that? This is what's called a PNG transparent layer is how it was saved. Control T and slowly and easily Shift Alt. I'm always holding the hotkeys on my keyboard. I'm going to just contain it and make sure that that reflection only covers what would be considered the lens. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to move it all the way on top. That reflection, Control T, Shift Alt, and let's make sure that that lens has a little bit of a gap, I call it. There you go. Beautiful. Would you look at that? I think it's too bright, so we're going to turn it down a little bit. But boys, I'm not trying to brag here. I am trying to brag. But look at this. That looks super duper, if you know what I'm saying. Super duper real, right? Looking gorgeous. There you go. So now, file, save. There's a couple more steps. This is highly detailed. I'm sorry about it, you know, but it is what it is. Make sure that it is a PNG. All these files are always PNG. Get out of that folder, one layer up. Find the preview. Say save. You want to overwrite it? Hell yeah, I do. And wouldn't you know it, now that we did that. I'm going to finally do the final moves here. I'm going to turn off a lot of these things. All the Allen bolts. I'm going to smash it, what I call smash them together. Control E, that's the Allen bolts. These are the rings. I'm going to turn everything off. Everything. You'll see in a moment why. We cannot forget to save the background layer with the Allen bolts. I'm going to turn everything off like this. There you go. That's our gauge right there. Minus the reflection. We don't need glass on it. Remember, he has a different layer for glass. So we're going to get to that in a moment. There you go. That's us. I'm going to turn off his layer right there. Oh. Now, there's a little detail here. I mean, anyone who's still watching and hasn't fallen asleep yet. I'm going to take my eraser tool. Okay. And I'm going to go underneath here. Some of his work is still showing through my work, and I don't want that at all right now. So we're going to make sure to delete it. See what I mean? That little shadow is no bueno for me, so I just went through and deleted that. There you go, perfect. All right, looking good. So what is this? This is the base layer. So if we look into that folder one more time, uno más tiempo. If we look in here, we see that this base layer now is lacking all of that background. And again, you could save this gauge without a background, but I like it because I've already used this background on a lot of stuff. So, one more time, we're going to look here. Make sure, yep, we want to add the background and the Allen bolts to it. So now that we have it like this, make sure the rings are turned up for what? We got the rings, we got this. Let's check again. Always double check. What was it that he had? Yep, it looks just like that. So we're looking good. No needles, nothing else. File, save as, PNG, and overwrite it. Smash it down, baby. Okay, so altitude scale is what he called it his. We're going to save, overwrite it, and say okie dokie. Now, we are almost there, boys. Let's turn on Air Manager and just start checking, brah. Let's start checking, brah. Okay, here's Air Manager. It was this that we didn't like. His was actually a little bit reddish on the outside and all that. Oh, one last step. My goodness, I'm so sorry. Please, please forgive me. We needed that reflection of Bruno. Do you remember Bruno? Hey, it's all about Bruno. So it was this. I'm going to grab it and drag it into Photoshop. Up at the top right here, opens it up. And let's really zoom in and look at it. You can't tell what it is, but if I put a new layer and I dump a bucket of color on top, which is usually white, drag it underneath, now you get to see. So this is what he calls his scratches, right? I don't want these scratches. Remember, we want Bruno and his best friend instead of these scratches. So Michel Theroux, my dude who made these gauges, that's what Air Manager says. Congrats, thank you. We're about to override your stuff, man. So I'm going to go over here. Remember, we got Bruno and his best friend. I'm going to drag it. We're going to make sure it's exactly the same size. Control T, Shift, Alt. And I've explained earlier on what that does. These are all hotkeys in Photoshop. We're going to shrink it just a little smaller. Remember, I made mine a little bit smaller. I'm going to turn off his. And I do believe mine was too dark. Was too bright or something. It was too obvious. I'm going to turn it down to 58%. I'm going to turn off the layer underneath. And I'm going to save it, boys. But don't close it down. Just save it in a moment. You'll see why. And save it as a PNG. And it was the scratches, right? Scratches is going to turn into Bruno. So, what's wrong with Bruno? Say okay. Go back to Air Manager. And let's add right on top of this, if you don't mind. Let's just, I'm getting tired. I don't want to like start from scratch. We will add an instrument. We will type in 152 altimeter. And we will pick the one that comes with Air Manager first. There it is. It's right there. I'm going to make it pretty big to show you guys, just so you can see them side by side. There you go. There's the standard one. I'm going to add another device, instrument. And I'm going to do the one that I called Altimeter CF Redo. There it is. But before I do that, I apologize. You always have to shut down Air Manager. As I just recalled, I hit save. And unfortunately, every time you make changes to these files and Air Manager is running, it doesn't know that you just made a change. It just goes with whatever it grabbed a few minutes ago. So, all that to say, restart Air Manager. No big deal. Go back in here. And let's add those instruments again. The instruments that we need is 152 altimeter, which is the original one. I'm going to add another instrument, 152 CF Redo. That's what I named it. So side by side, this is what he had. This is what I did. I don't know, man. I'm just feeling pretty good about myself right now. You should too. If you followed along, you should. These are just preview images. So, all right, now that we have it, guess what, boys? It's that time. It's that time that we all dread, and it's called turning on Flight Simulator and testing it out and hoping that we don't have to update for an hour, get 10 crashes every 5 minutes. A lot of things can happen, as you know, or wait 47 minutes for it to open, which is what's happening right now. By the way, I already turned it on. I'm just waiting. Just staying hydrated in the meantime. All right, boys, here she comes. And if anyone's watching this and you're a big Flight Simulator fan, please tell me why this menu started coming up after Sim Update 10. Please don't tell me because I got mods in my community folder. Don't say that. It's just ridiculous. It's like I feel like the game's constantly broken. Even though nothing happens, the game starts, we get to play, whatever. But that menu bugs the crap out of me every single time. All right, boys, come on, come on, come on. If I were you guys, I'd grab a cup of tea right now because this will take a moment to open up. ¿Quién está en el chat? Who is in the chat? Come on, the two people that are watching right now. Hello, friends. I've been going at this for 2 hours by myself. Who is it? State your name, gangsta. Who's your name is? Who are you? Now we got 4 viewers. I need to know names. I've been going at it for 2 hours. It's late at night. I'm tired. I got to work in the morning. Please. All I'm asking is give me your name. Make up a name. Say it's Rodriguez. I don't care. Just make up a name. Tell me your name. All right, let's get on a plane, get anywhere, pick an airport. Let's test this out. I did a lot of work. It's got to work. This better work. Of course it's going to work because I've done it before. I've done this before. You wouldn't believe it, but I've done it before. You guys are so mean. You're in my chat and you just don't want to tell me your names. You want to say hi. Come on, man. I know this is boring. Of course it's boring. Nobody wants to do gauge redos, but we have to. They're not as pretty as they should be. All right, boys, here we go. Let's make this realistic. What do you say? Oh, yeah. Oh, it's about to get good, boys. All right, here we go. We're in the Cessna. I'm going to make sure I got my controllers down here. I'm going to make sure throttle is all the way down. Sure, let's set the flaps to 1 because we're going to try to take off in a moment. I don't have my controllers, boys, but here it is, right? So here we are in the game. Let's turn this off. There's the altimeter, and I'm going to start Air Manager, and I'm going to show you guys. So come on, baby, just work here. Okay, we're going to go here. Unfortunately, it's opening up God only knows where, on what screen. We're not going to open it up. So what I will do is just to show it to you guys. It is right here. We're going to go to create edit and we're going to run it. Where is it? Altimeter CF redo, and we're just going to run it. So what that does, it's always going to be on top of anything else. So there you go. Let's hide Air Manager. Come on, baby. Where are you? Unfortunately, I cannot do that. I cannot hide it. So we're going to run it and maybe try to minimize this window so you guys can see a little better. There you go. All right, so almost side by side. There you go. That's what we did, right? So just to show you guys, of course, it was either that or 152 altimeter. So our goal was to improve it. You know, the question is, did we improve it? Right? It looks like this. So these two are not the same to me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'd be picky, whatever. These two are definitely not the same. So I'm going to show you mine. And that is a lot closer. Now let's test it. Here we go. I mean, you know, check your numbers. I think that's aligning pretty well. I don't like, so, you know, of course I'm not gonna take any blame for this because I'm a piece of crap, but like, I don't think he aligned his barometer settings properly because I didn't move anything. I simply changed the color of it, and the fact that it's not aligning, it's possible that either I moved this little pointer or the dial underneath is misaligned. But everything else looks pretty damn sauced up, I would say. Even the 0, the 10,000 is off in Flight Simulator. It's off in mine. You know, we could see 700 feet, 720 feet, 720 and a few more. Okay, with all that said, test time, boy. Throttle in. Parking brake off. 2 hours for one gauge, my goodness. I don't have everything set up right now to actually run the game, so this whole bad boy, because I'm drawing, I don't have anything set up to control the plane. So throttle in, just let her lift off. There she is, she's doing it. Boys, it's working, I did it. Come on, can I get a clap in the chat? Can I get something? I did it. Nobody's saying anything. So we did it, boys. We changed it. It doesn't look like the old one. Here, we're going to run the old one again. There's nothing wrong with the old one. It's just not the same. It has a bit of a reddish hue to it. As we can see, the panel is actually tan. I prefer black. You guys can do whatever you want. So here, I'm going to run mine on top of his. First of all, I added Allen bolts because I thought that was cool. I made the background black, and I copied every single thing from the game. The gauge face, the needles are all stolen from the game, and I mean stolen, right? Kindly copied. And now this gauge is this gauge. Did I take some liberties? Yes. The word alt is absolutely not correct. I think altimeter should be much bigger. And guess what, guys? This is super easy, right? So let's just quickly do this and get my butt to bed here. I'm gonna go back to our monsters file here. I'm gonna look at the word alt. Go Control Z backwards here, and as I said, you know, altimeter should have been a lot bigger, but the problem is the good thing is I saved everything, right? So that was very, very forward thinking of me that I saved it. So just by taking altimeter and stretching it, I think it was just as big as the word certified, if I recall. So talking about the details, this is the only reason I did this, is to make sure that we're dead on to what the plane looks like. So hey, you know, we got the plane going. We're going to Flight Simulator before she crashes. And what does it look like? The word alt is just a little higher, and it is almost as big as the word calibrated. We're going in circles in the game, whatever, who cares? So, you know, how anal do you want to be? You know, it's up to you. So I'm going to move it up a little bit, and I'm going to go File, Save As, PNG, and I'm going to override it. But remember what I told you, so that's the round needle. Save, yes. Now let's get back in the game and show you what I did not like. I definitely didn't like the fact that, come on, there you go. I didn't like the fact that the word alt wasn't sitting proper. But look at that, it actually moved. I didn't think it would, I told you have to restart flight, sorry, I'm so tired right now. You have to restart Air Manager, but that's not true because as you can see, this worked. So Guys, super freaking cool. I don't know what else to tell you. It worked. I love you guys. You're not telling me your names. You're not saying hi. Love you guys. This was fun. We're gonna do it again. Subscribe, all that, like, whatever they say on YouTube. Come on, baby, let's do it again. I love you, boys. I hope this was fun. Oh, by the way, this is super important. If anyone knows how I can export these gauges so you guys can have them, I don't care. I would love to export these images. I don't want to teach you for you to have to do this for 2-3 hours. I'm a professional. I've done this for my whole life. I know how to modify these files. Please, if someone's hearing me say this, please write in the chat how I can give you these gauges, how I can upload them to Air Manager for free, or uploading someplace where people can download these and replace theirs. I hope that someone hears this. It's late, I'm tired,